Dr. Iyad, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Now can you hear me? Just a moment.
Yes.
No? It's better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I have two computers. One is not working with the other. It seems they're making some problems. So I welcome everyone. I can't see you. I don't know why I can't see you from the other computer, but it seems, but you can see everything, right? I see that you're okay. I can see you from the other computer here, actually. Yeah. Okay, just a moment. Okay, welcome everyone to this lecture about applied Phronesis. It's part of the project of Erasmus Plus capacity building project, the Academic Alliance for Reconciliation and Peace Building Studies in the Middle East and North Africa. So this is we will speak, I will just tell you like briefly what we are doing. So we're going to talk about applied Phronesis. We're going to start with the reconciliation session, and then we're going to start with tools and strategies. And then we go a little bit into the applied Phronesis, and then we'll go out and we'll create a group. We'll divide you into groups, and then we'll do some workshops with you, a workshop to understand how applied Phronesis is working. And then we go into some of the case studies, and we'll then open discussions. So it will be a half lecture and then the group meetings, and then go back to the discussion about what you have discussed in the groups. And then we go back to the lecture again. So I will start with the reconciliation part. So here I can start. Here is this phrase of the Quran was taken by Paul Hallenbuck. She's a professor from for forgiveness in Islam, and she wrote the first with 10 professors as well, that this is one of the greatest surahs in the Quran about reconciliation, as it is in the name of the most merciful and compassionate. The reward of the evil is the evil thereof, but whoever forgives and makes amends, his reward is upon God. So this was taken as forgiveness in Islam that makes reconciliation a part of what reconciliation can happen. So people who are in power can forgive, and it can develop the balance. And this is how reconciliation is part of becoming a balance between two nations or two people that are in conflict. So this is part of what we promote in the reconciliation in the middle of conflict. So the other book I would like to talk about is our perspective of reconciliation here at the Yana Center for Reconciliation Studies, and at we call it the Yana approach. So the Yana approach is about Hölderlin perspective. It comes from Friedrich Hölderlin, and he said about reconciliation is in the middle of the strife, and everything apart finds each other again. And it's you can find it in the book of Hölderlin Perspective in the Latin American Between Conflict and Reconciliation, edited by Martin Leinen and Fleming. The other book about reconciliation of the Yana approach is Societies in Transition. The book talks about political rule of law in conflicts, and about how to develop a secure common future in developing security in conflicts, and how conflicts can be developed in transitions, and how apologies can be a part, and how can they take places in conflict. So this is part of also the Yana approach. It goes about developing a common future in economy, rule of law, international law, a common cooperation for building the economical perspective of nations that are in conflict as well. And also talks about the common history. So you have the history of the victims and the history of the perpetrator as well, and how you can develop a common shared history between two nations or two people, or it goes back to individuals. This is, I'm talking about the approach of the reconciliation methods and strategies. And you can see it in this book called Societies in Transition. And there's a lot of strategies that you can also add from different perspective of reconciliation. So this is the second book where it's about alternative approaches in conflict resolution. So a lot of we understand that the works of studies of conflict resolution was part of in the 80s and 70s and 90s, actually into 90s, and now after peace agreements and many peace agreements, what they do after that. So reconciliation came as a mechanism to an alternative approach for reconciliation resolution. This book was edited by Professor Leiner and Schliers, and I think it really expects about different aspects of reconciliation. And it tells you how reconciliation, it describes reconciliation as a transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary method in different aspects. So you can find reconciliation in arts, you can find reconciliation in movies, you can find reconciliation in, let's say today I was thinking of Aikido, how reconciliation and reconcile with yourself. This is part of the Aikido mechanism. And this which was really astonishing for me as well. So you talk about reconciliation as a mechanism that can develop into process. And then I would like to talk about reconciliation studies as a proposition of a definition. This is by Professor Dr. Martin Leiner, where it's a description, interpretation, and evaluation of a process, creating a normal, if possible, good relations between states, groups, organizations, individual reacting against the past, present, and preventing future. Grave incidents such as wars, civil wars, genocide, atrocity, forced displacement, enslavement, dictatorship, oppression, colonization, apartheid, and other human rights violation of injustice. So this is why, what is reconciliation studies and what we are striving for in our research and what we are going to do. So here we can talk, what does reconciliation, what is reconciliation? We all talk about the philosophy of peace studies, the philosophy of reconciliation, how reconciliation can be applied, but what is the studies of reconciliation? What does it do? There is something called what we call in peace building. So you're talking about peace, talking about reconciliation, but what is the practitioner work? So when you say you want to build peace, what you have to vision is what you vision today and what you see today actually is different from what you will vision in the future. For example, the narrative, the historical narrative of my enemy will be changed. He's not going to become your enemy anymore. The social aspect of your enemy is going to change. The societal beliefs is going to change. The societal belief of my own enemy is going to change. Your perspective for peaceful coexistence and peace building. So you don't just write an agreement and say, I want to do peace, and you write an agreement. This is not enough. You have to work towards those agreements and to develop. This is what the reconciliation process. I can tell you about Mandela that he says there is no path for peace. The peace is the path. So here I can say that there's no path for reconciliation process. Reconciliation is the process. So when you say, I want to write agreement, and then you say, I don't want to be part of this NGO because it's speaking about normalization, or you can say what it is doing, but then you are not for peace. You are on your own perspective of peace that is not shared with your common enemy. So when you want to do peace and you want to say, I want to develop a peace building, put in your mind that it will change everything. It will change all kinds of perspective, your beliefs, your religious beliefs, cultural beliefs, if you are challenging them. You're challenging them to transform them into another path, but it is for a better common future. So it's not normalization, as a lot of people that are speaking about normalization, that it might be reconciliation. No, normalization can happen after you develop reconciliation and peace building between two enemies or two people that are in nation. So when I am a nation, I don't go build walls and I say, I want to develop peace. I don't make checkpoints or stuck with people or treat them badly or develop rules of laws that are racist to the other gender. And they say, this is rights of human rights. I'm developing human rights. So this is where people are misleading, that they don't understand the peace practitioners or peace builders. They are developing something new about peace. They're not developing their new ideology, new narrative. It's something transformative. The culture will transform. And if you stop that transformation, you're stopping the peace building methods that are happening. So it's not just studying the philosophy, it's just understanding that once you start and you commit yourself for peace or peace building, you have to understand that all your beliefs are going to be challenged. Your narrative, your history, your common culture, your politics, your economy, even your friendship. Your enemy will transform into your friend. So this is a lot of aspects that people don't understand. And this is how reconciliation is working. And the process of reconciliation, what the meant about it is transformation, or what we call transformative action. This word was taken from Ledrech, is that part of the conflict transformation is developing what we call transformative action. So building trust, building justice, transitional justice, restorative justice, this develop what we call transformative actions. And you cannot expect that your enemy must stay your enemy. All the activities that you are doing is in transformation. So you cannot say, I want to be for peace. Yes, I am for peace and I am for peace building, but I will challenge nothing of my own identity. I will not challenge my culture. I will not challenge my beliefs. I will not challenge my social behavior. So this is not peace and not going to peace. This is what reconciliation is here to do. So it's a study, how can a transformative action take place for a common future between two nations that are in conflict? This is part of what I think about. So here I share with you some of the tools that can be done within the reconciliation process, like apology, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, public trials, reparation, payments, writing a common history, acknowledge the history of the other, reconciliation education, the internet communication technologies, the communication media, publishing meeting between presentations of groups that are in conflict, the work of NGOs in the middle of conflict, joint projects and research and recognition, culture exchange, orientation, the empathy in the conflict. There's a method of enhancing empathy in conflict. So I cannot say that I want to be, I want to work for peace, I want to study peace, but I want to consider apology. I don't want to do any kind of apologies. I don't want to do any public trials. I don't want to do any reparations. I don't want to do any writing of a common history. I don't want to do any education that has anything to do with peace or reconciliation. I don't want to do any communication that are online with my enemy. And then I will say that I'm promoting a peace building between me and my other people. This does not work that way. So people like write the agreements between nations. They don't understand there's a transformation is going to happen. And it's challenging. It's not something that's easy. It's challenged. That you have people that are died and you have victims, and they can really, it's very hard for them to really accept the other, to accept their enemies. So that's what, and to accept that that's the transformation of enemy into a friend. So this is where reconciliation happens. And this is where tools of reconciliation can be used to try to develop, to undermine the hatred, we call it the knowledge of hatred. The acknowledgement of the knowledge of hatred between two nations. And this is where it has to heal. And this is where reconciliation tools can happen. And this is what the reason. And it can never end. People think, okay, I do reconciliation today. No, reconciliation is a long, long process that the benefits are the future, the children of the future. So this is why I can take you from the Bible, what is said about in the Bible, that the peacemakers are the future, the children of God. So this is kind of what we are talking about. So this is one of the important aspects in the reconciliation tools that I'm talking about. Did anyone have any questions?
Dr. Iyad? Yeah, Dr. Iyad, just I want to ask you a question regarding the last idea that we could do reconciliation and we can proceed in this project without challenging our identity, without challenging our beliefs, and so on and so forth. So my question is, how could this happen without even having the tendency or the desire to surrender or to sacrifice some of our beliefs or identity? Because we know that everyone, for example, everyone has specific beliefs, and this beliefs is deeply rooted. So I think if we don't have this tendency or the desire or if we don't feel the need to sacrifice some of our beliefs, we could not build, like, let's say, common understanding or common vision. So how could happen without?
Let me answer.
Yeah.
I can answer because we finished the first half. So that's a good question that you asked. Thank you so much. It's a very important question. So this is what I talked in my last, I was in Tokyo in Japan, and people ask actually the question, what is reconciliation that I need to know? Reconciliation is not forgive and forget. A lot of people think of it, that reconciliation is forgive and forget, and sacrifices what you said. But no, it's not. It's forgive and work for a better future. So
exactly.
I'm not forgiving, I'm not sacrificing, you're not forgiving to lose. You're forgiving to build. So it is the opposite.
Yeah.
This is where reconciliation happens. So I'm not here, I will sit with my enemy. My enemy can become my friend on one condition, that he is willing to build with me a common future, not for me and for him, because me and him, we are part of the conflict. I am thinking of the future. So reconciliation actually never happens. Reconciliation happens in the future, but you have to build it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna, and it keeps on building and building. Like now, if I can give you an example of Korea, North and South Korea, they were started the reconciliation in 2020 and signed the agreement in 2019. So it took them 19 years to really understand that they can sign a reconciliation between them. So, and then start working towards this reconciliation. So it's not just signing the agreement. So a lot of peacemakers that are peace building or peace agreements, it's just agreements, and they sign it, and then they don't work towards it, and they say, "Oh, we did peace." No, you did not do peace. Peace or reconciliation, for example. So this is where like peace and reconciliation are the difference. So you sign a peace agreement, but then you need the reconciliation process to understand and to develop the healing process. You don't sacrifice. I'm not saying about sacrificing your identity. You never can change your identity. I'm not saying about changing anything. I'm saying about the transformative action, that you are building something new building. Yeah, that's how you think. That reconciliation is a process of building something new with your enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And while building this, you develop new relations, but you cannot say, okay, I will build with him, but I will not give him something of my knowledge. And he will build with you, but he will not give you anything of his knowledge. And then you decide, okay, we build together. So it's not going to be whether you're just parallel, and then you'll build the wall, and then you didn't do peace, you still hate each other. And this happens in many conflicts. And that's where intractable conflict and stagnated conflict happened. They signed the peace agreements, they did not build peace. They signed the agreements, they did not work towards peace. So this was one of the, like where I see it, that where reconciliation is in the middle and can develop what we call, we'll go into it now in the second, why the philosophy of reconciliation can develop what we call the ultra-dynamic powers. So you're not losing your power when you do reconciliation. You're not accepting the other. No, you're accepting that you want to build a better future for him and for yourself at the same time. Because the conflict has went into a stage what they call protracted intractable conflict. It's not going to change. It's stagnated in one point. So what do we do in that point? So this is what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I think is there any other questions?
Yeah, just related to your idea, the idea of building the future.
Now we can go to the other aspect of the.
So the building of this future, I mean, the common future, should be based on the, let's say, the cultural background, the ideas that we have, the perspective of life that we have, the philosophy of life that we have, or should be started out of scratch, should be built out of scratch, forgetting everything that is related to our background and building a new, let's say, like building a new world and so on. So because sometimes to my mind, if we don't forget the cultural background, the religious background, we cannot build, let's say, a new world that encompass all the differences, the diversities and so on. Because suppose that we want to build a reconciliation or peace between Muslims and Jews or Christians. So the Christians think that they are right, and the Muslims, they are right, and especially that our teaching, I mean, the religious teaching, make us believe that we are true and the other is wrong. So if we don't forget everything that is related to our religious cultural background, so we cannot, I think, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think of it this way: if we don't, let's say, start from out of scratch, so maybe the task or the project will be to some extent hard. I'm just
so I don't think
yeah,
I don't think you will start from scratch. You can never start from scratch. That will never happen. Yeah. So you have to start. You cannot disregard people's identity. People has tried to do it for many years now. You have a lot of conflicts around the world, and they tried, each one wanted to change the other person's identity and not accept him. So you are still in conflict. So the idea of starting from scratch is not just your idea, it's everyone's idea. Let's start from scratch. Doesn't work. I will not change my identity. I will not change what I believe. I will not change nothing. This is who I am, and you have to accept who I am as I am. But what I would do with you is work for a better common future. And that future means that your sons and my son will pray together without having hatred within each other. So like there's other ways, there's always a way to do it. Once there's a will, there's a way. For example, there's no compulsion in religion, in Islam. Compulsion, there's no compulsion. So you cannot say that I want to make all the whole world Muslims against their will. It's forbidden in Islam, for example. But they teach this. They accept to teach some people. You want them, the radicals will not accept to teach that Islam is a harmless religion, and it's Islam called Salam, for peace. And no, they want a war, and they believe that they're gonna remove, and they forgot that there's no compulsion in religion. And that's also when you go into extremism, you take the path of extremism, then you want everyone to forget, and you want everyone to rule, and you want to change their minds. And this doesn't work. For the whole years that came, didn't work. If it worked, then why need reconciliation? So why need forgiveness? If you can really change people? And no, you cannot. So we are not asking people to change their mind. So this is where we're not asking people to develop normalization as people think. No, we are asking, think of a better future. Because staying within conflict is not a better future. Why people need peace, because it can build a common future for the people for the children of the future. So this is why we are doing it. We're not doing it for ourselves. So when you say I'm going to forgive and forget, it's not going to work. But when you say I want to forgive on building a common future, but tell me how to build it together. So you cannot build it without having apologies. You cannot build it without reparation. You cannot build it with truth commissions. You have to understand, there's two histories that are different from each other. You have to develop a common shared history. So you can say that the history happened, accept the history, and now we're developing a new history. So this is what you want to do, not to erase the history, not to erase the healing. The healing will become happening when you develop the new historical way, the new future, the new history. When we say developing common shared history, for example, common shared history, what do we mean by that? We mean that I'm not changing your history and giving you my history, so you can believe in my history, like you can believe in my Jesus, or you can believe in my God, Muhammad, or Allah, or you can believe in the Jewish. No. We are working together for a better common future and building for our children a new history to think of, a better history than the history that we fought over for the religion. And this is the aspect of it. So we never say delete your history, remove, erase, forgive and forget. This is not true. Forgive and forget, that's a wrong way. You have to forgive to build a common future. And this is what happens in as Ledrich said, transformative action. The start of a transformative action towards a reconciliation process. And that's, I think I answer. If you have any other questions, anyone can actually ask before we go to the other aspect of the.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iyad.
So now we'll talk about the tools and strategies, methods and tools that we can do and work for reconciliation. Rawan, are we good on time? Everything is okay? Or okay. I apologize for Rawan because she should have started and talk about the activities, and I just went in directly. So we can, before I go into the applied phronesis, maybe then I'll let Rawan and she can speak about the activity that we are going to do. Is that okay? Okay, so I'll start with the strategies now. And this is some tools that we talked about, that we started about. Now we understand why we need such tools. And we have to, the tools are, you can write your whole dissertation about those tools. You can say the apology, and write how apology can happen in conflict, during conflict, after conflict, what the type of apology should be. And so truth and commissions, public trials, we can talk about it, and you can write your whole dissertation about those tools. So because so this is what is important about it. And now one of it, I can say, who am I? As we were talking about forgiveness in our culture and many cultures, forgiveness, you're a sheep. Because you have decided to acknowledge the pain, choose to forgive, and ask for forgiveness when I do wrong, move on with life. You are a sheep. But when we are taking who I am, when you're going to reconciliation, you're not doing ask forgiveness when I do wrong. You ask forgiveness, yes, but because I want to do a better future. So this is where I kind of, you know, but like you have to say that why you're doing the stuff. You have to ask this word, why. So you have to ask some questions. You have to challenge yourself why you're doing it. And then you do the goals. And then you see if you want to do forgiveness to give the other power, then yes, the other person will just erase your history because you accepted it. You say, yeah, I'm sitting here with you, my enemy, and I'm willing to forgive you for the atrocities you did. I know I cannot forgive you, but I know that the better future that I will have for my children, and they will have to develop a shared future. So, but they will learn the history of what happened. So you have one of it is you have to accept the narrative of the other, the suffering of the other. So as you have suffering, expect that the other also have suffering. So this I took from Kreisberg. He said about coexistence. So one of the reconciliation aspect that happens, it developed coexistence. And as you see, this is justice. So reconciliation can develop justice, and justice, where we see justice in the middle of conflict, a balance for the conflict. So the conflict happens usually because there's no balance. You have someone who is very strong and someone who is very weak, or someone who have weakness, and the weak is struggling to power his power over the strong, and the strong is really more powerful, and he wants the sublime of the weak to make him, you know, take his way. So at the end, justice can make the balance, and reconciliation can develop a balance. So a lot of people say we cannot do reconciliation because our enemy is stronger than us. But no, reconciliation develops the balance. For if you accept to forgive your enemy, then the enemy will take this forgiveness and he will not throw it away. He would want to keep it. And once he wants to keep this kind of forgiveness, what happens is the balance. So you disagree with him in a lot of stuff, but he wants to keep the reconciliation process happening. So he has to accept what you want, and he has to negotiate with you with what we want. So this is where reconciliation developed the balance. And this is where you got justice, where we got the word justice, transitional justice, restorative justice, all this kind of justice that comes, evolve, and empowers within the reconciliation process. I think you know this, the Greek god. Yeah, and see, the Greeks also talks about justice. So see how long the terms are. We're not talking about term that is happening today. We're talking about terms that happened from Greek philosophy. So really, and now we're talking like it's not that we are creating something new. It's something very old. How old? 4,000 years old. This was taken from the Book of Death of the pharaohs. You see, there is one God, two God, third God, fourth God, and this is the heart of the dead, and this is the jug of goodness. So how much the good he did, it will balance his heart. So as much balance, so justice, and there's like four gods working it, and this was designed 4,000 years ago. So I'm not talking about reconciliation. So a lot of people say, reconciliations just started 20 years ago. People start talking about it. No, it was there 4,000 years ago. Here you get it. So I'm learning it from the pharaohs, the god of the pharaohs. So here we can go more into the strategy of reconciliation of the Yana approach. That's what we are doing. So you cannot have coexistence and justice in the middle of conflict. But if you work towards the coexistence and justice to work in the conflict and develop reconciliation, so it is like you're moving, you're doing transformation, you're transforming the conflict. So that's where we got the term conflict transformation. So you can find a lot of tools, but some tools, if you misuse it, you go into normalization, and you lose your aim. Like, for example, forgetting your history. So that's, or you're accepting not to talk about your history, accepting not to be part of or changing your identity, accepting, I tell you, I meet people, they don't want to speak Arabic, for example, because they were in atrocities in the US. There's a lot of who comes for other people that don't want to speak their own languages anymore, because this is part of, they want to hide it, that's it. We don't want to forget. This is a way when individuals are trying to reconcile with themselves. But when you are trying to really develop a conflict transformation, and going into that, you have to think that many elements can be used in reconciliation, and it might also be misused. So when it was misused, you cannot say, okay, reconciliation is normalization. This happened to me in a conference in Hebron, actually, where a woman said, the professor said that normalization is reconciliation, which is no, it's not. It's just the misusing of the tools that developed the way to reconciliate, to instead of reconciliation to normalization, using the tools wrongly. When you get wrong the results, and you cannot put that on the tools itself. So this is also one of the aspects. Here's about the thing that I talked about, peace building and the reality. So you have the reality of the first enemy, and then you have the reality of the second enemy, and they are both in conflict. Reconciliation, you have to accept that there's going to be a new reality. You cannot accept that your friend is in conflict and he's your friend, but but he's in your enemy at the same time. If this can happen, then this is normalization. But if you say, okay, he's going to become my friend, then you have to treat him as a friend. And then it will become more accepting his history, accepting his knowledge, accepting the suffering, accepting his identity, accepting what he wants to become in the future, and his perspective of his future for his own people. So the reality that you had before is totally different than the new reality today and the reality of the future. So when I speak about the reality of reconciliation, I have to understand that both realities are going to change. So here is what some of the words that I got of reconciliation that are some used in Arabic. For example, musalaha, from suluh, this is reconciliation, ta'ayush, mujalasa, mujayara, musamaha, mu'asafat, tardiyah, taswiyah. Now, all of them can be done in a reconciliation way, or they can be done in a very bad way. So if you say, I want to do some taswiyah, or your rights are gone, this is not reconciliation, because you will not heal unless you accept that your rights are there and that you got your rights, for example. So it's a two thing. You have to understand it. There's two things. So you have to understand whether you're using how you are using the tools. So now we can go to the applied Phronesis, and after that we're going to do some activities together. Maybe Rawan, you can tell us about the activities before I start to the applied Phronesis, and then if you can explain the activities to us.
Yes, so after Dr. Iyad explains the applied Phronesis, we're going to have some group work where we're going to divide you to 3 groups and give you some metrics to work on trying to apply the applied Phronesis in a case study. Later on, we will have a short break, and then you guys are going to present. So each group is going to present what the outputs of their analysis are. Then we are going to discuss it all together. So you will be given some time to work as groups, decide on which case study or which conflict you would like to work on, and then you can start working on it. But first, keep an eye on what Dr. Iyad is going to explain now, because it is like the basis for the analysis you're going to do, guys.
So thank you, Rawan. Thank you very much, and thank you for your help in developing this session. So now we go to applied phronesis. So applied, I don't know why this happened. Just a moment. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm back. So applied phronesis. Does anyone know what is phronesis? Any of you know the term phronesis?
I think it's a philosophy from Aristotle. It's between Aristotle and the development of technology using the concept and scamming the societies.
That's a very good idea. I think you have a very good idea about it. That's excellent, actually. Who else? Who else can share with us what he thinks about applied phronesis? So I'll give you a tip. It's about prudent. Prudent is becoming a guru. You know what is a guru? An Indian guy who has a big knowledge in working philosophical humanities, and he knows a lot about humanities. So anyone could like to share what he thinks about phronesis? Phronesis. It is an Aristotelian word, by the way, and it's from Aristotle himself, Aristotle. Yeah, as Abdullah said. Yeah. So I continue if nobody wants to share what he thinks. So I would like to continue then. So applied phronesis is prudence. Prudence means to get the knowledge of becoming a wise person. So how can you become a wise person? And how you can make the people around you becoming wise? So having people in conflict are not being wise. So you do not reach phronesis when you are not wise enough because you're in conflict. So that's why I called it applied phronesis for reconciliation process. So we are going now to take you little bit how this aspect developed. It was developed by actually Aristotle, and he said prudency to reach the way where knowledge and technique can work together. Where epistemology and episteme and technique can be part of developing a product. And that product can lead you to phronesis. So this is part of the aspect of applied phronesis. So this is like, this is just an introduction of the whole, this lecture and next lecture that will take, sessions that I will give. These are part where we are going. So you have applied phronesis, then we go to mixed method, ethnography, digital humanities, qualitative content analysis, in vivo for Windows. So these are we'll try to, not this lecture, but this lecture we are in applied phronesis for today. So here where we start, Aristotle. So here is what Aristotle wrote in his book, Human Ethics. We may grasp the nature of prudence, phronesis, if we consider what sort of people we'll call prudent. So you can decide what is prudent. What is me being wise? Is hatred being wise? Lying being wise? Being in conflict is being wise? Is it wise to be in conflict with my enemy? So this is where you ask yourself about what the prudency is. Well, it is thought to be the mark of a prudent man to be able to deliberate rightly about what is right and advantageous. So here, he's asking himself, so it is the right of a prudent man. Who is the prudent man? Is a man who can deliberate, challenge his societal belief, challenge his narrative, challenge his identity, challenge the culture, and here is the question, for what is right and advantageous. So I cannot come and say that the righteous is to stay in conflict, whether I am in power and I'm very strong, you know, like United States left Afghanistan. Was it the righteous for the United States to leave Afghanistan or stay in Afghanistan, for example? So this is also a good question. So where is the right in it? And advantages. But nobody deliberates about things that are invariable. So nobody debates whether it's right or wrong, humanitarianly or ethical. This is where you come in ethical consideration, also in conflict. So prudence cannot be a science or art. So now he's telling you to be a wise person. It's not a science and it's not art. When he says art, it's not something that you can do with your hands. And it's not how much you learn, you can become scientist. So you say, I want to just read books every day without touching anything. Like you want to be a philosopher, but you only read books of philosophy, and that's it. And you don't practice philosophy. How can you become a philosopher? So this is what he's trying to say, that prudence cannot be a science or art. So you differentiate between the science. Science is episteme, and art is the technique. So episteme came developed in our normal language is know-how, and the art is the how-to. So here as he comes episteme, because what can be done is variable, episteme, the variable itself. It may be done in diverse ways or not done at all. And not art. An art is saying about technique, the how-to, because action and production are genetically different. So this is what I was saying. So you have a reconciliation process and you say reconciliation is bad with my enemy. I don't want it. No, reconciliation is not bad. It's just the tools that you are using it to develop the product is bad. So you're using the tools wrong. So you can drive the car over a cliff, or you can drive the car over a bridge to get to the other cliff. So you cannot say that. So this is the difference between what you're doing between episteme and technique and how you combine them together. We have a saying, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. This is, they say it in economy and in a lot of projects. So this is like people, they do a huge project, but then what is the outcome of this project? They don't see any outcome. There's not sustainability. It's not future reference. It will not no validity in this project. They did not do just workshops, and then people go home. So this is part of the problem. So the problem is not what the workshop, everyone does workshop, but why everyone going home and forgetting about the workshop? So the tools that you're using it wrong and getting the wrong outcome and blaming the tools for it. So this is part of what I am talking about. So this is not me as well. This is what Aristotle is talking about. So now we go back to, because what can be done is variable. Variable, it's changing what we are doing, and it may be done in diverse ways, and it can be done in a different way. So you have to accept that peace in your eyes is not the same as peace in the other person. This is when actually Professor Wolfgang Ditcher said it's many pieces. Why? Because it's different. It's variable. It's changing. And you cannot come and say, you want to have my peace. So I will tell you from my experience, I meet a lot of Israelis, and they say, I want my peace. You say, I am a peaceful man, I want to do peace. Or the Palestinians, I'm Palestinian as well. I meet a lot of Palestinians and they want to do their peace. Does not work that way. And that way, there's many pieces, but how can you connect the many pieces together? In my point of view, it might be applied phronesis. So one of these variables that are changing, and it's not art. So it's not just you are doing peace. You have to develop the art of integration between the episteme and technique. And this is where he's saying, because actions and production are genetically different. And then you go for production, aims at the end other than itself. So when I say I want peace building with my enemy, tomorrow I will marry the daughter of my enemy, because my children and their children live together in peace. So my children fell in love with their children and they got married, but I don't accept that. But this is the production, you know? So you have, when you say reconciliation, and it means the production will be different. So why you have stagnated conflict and intractable conflict and protractable conflict? Why do you have those conflicts? And they are continuing to have them because the people who wanted to do peace, they did not understand that the production aims at the end other than itself. So it's also different and changing. And you cannot say, I want the product, my own product. It's not going to happen. But this is impossible. See, in the case of action, because the end is merely doing well. So doing well at the end, which is in my point of view, is reconciliation. You cannot do reconciliation while you're not accepting to forgive, and you're not doing without doing preparation, and you cannot do without apologies. You cannot do reconciliation without accepting the knowledge of the other, and you understand. But if you do what is against your own will and accept to do a reconciliation, that at the end is you are doing well. So you're doing the right thing. So what remains then is that it is the real state, reasoned and capable of actions about things that are good or bad for man. So at the end, for production and aims and the end of other than itself, this is impossible in the case of actions because end is merely doing well. What remains? Then it is that it is a real statement. Then what remains? A real statement, something that is real. So reconciliation, it is something real that really happens, that you want and your enemy wants. And it is reasoned. Why? Because you didn't do what you want. You negotiated, you accepted a little bit of what they want, and they accepted of what you want, and you have tried to integrate your both narratives to develop a new narrative. And it is reasoned, and it's capable of action about things that are good for or bad for man. And it is capable of action, and you can do it. So I will finish this, and then we can open discussion about it. What remains then is that it is a real statement, reasoned, and capable of action about things that are good for or bad for man. We consider that this quality belongs to those who understand the management of a household or a state. So he states that this quality of reason is that who has this kind of quality, who has this kind of prudence, a leader. So you can never become a leader if you are not able to understand the difference between how to develop change or the episteme and technology and the production of prudency. So Phronesis is prudent to attain the best judgment for an argument. This was said by Habermas, by the way, not by, but this is what Phronesis is, to attain the best judgment for another argument. So how can you, this is a question I ask you, how can you attain the best judgment for an argument? So I open for questions here, I see. Abdullah, you can ask if you have a question. I think I see your raised hand.
Yes, as I understand from this PowerPoint, Phronesis is like emotional detachment. But how can I apply that with my thesis when I work on my research?
What do you mean by emotional detachment?
As you said, that wisdom is like trying to see the other part without like emotions or without like with accept of all what he want and what I want also. But okay, if I took this as a wisdom, how I can apply it in my thesis? If I want to apply Phronesis and use it in my research.
Yeah, it's not about, now you're mixing. Phronesis is a tool of a philosophy, and the tool you want to apply it in reconciliation. So this is the aspect about it. So how can you apply it? And reconciliation is healing. It starts with the healing of the suffering of the other. So it comes with apology and forgiveness. So I apologize for you, and you accept me, I forgive you. And then we work together. It's about the healing process. So applied Phronesis is about gathering. It's a reconciliation process. Why? Because it develops reconciliation if you understand the technique, the tools of reconciliation, and the knowledge of how to use those tools in the right way. So if I apologize for you and you don't accept my apology, okay, but then I tell you, can you forgive me? I apologize and can you forgive me? But I will try to work better future for you and for both of us. Then you will say your terms will be, okay, I forgive you, and my terms is my future will be a good future with you and your future, but my history will stay my history. You never say I will change your history, your narrative, your past. This can never happen. So this is prudency. As he said, the force is the Phronesis is prudent to attain the best judgment of an argument. And then you go what we call the ethical consideration of prudency is like it's an ethical, it's applied ethics. So what we are doing is we are doing applied ethics into the reconciliation process. Because without that, you cannot have reconciliation without ethical consideration. So you cannot have reconciliation while you are doing, let's say, occupation. Because once you start working towards reconciliation, you are starting to transform, let's say, for example, occupation for a different, something else. But then I stop it. Then you stop the reconciliation process. You cannot say I built peace when you are continuing the occupation while I'm building peace. No, because there's a conflict transformation. The idea of having reconciliation is to develop conflict transformation and transformative action for intractable and protracted conflicts. So this is how it's working. So what I'm trying here to do is to tell you the philosophy. So everything starts with a philosophy. So the philosophy of it is you becoming a wise person or whatever, the nation developing a better nation. You cannot be a better nation if you are occupying other people. So this is where applied philosophy comes. So how can I be a better nation? How can my nation become a wise nation? How can I become wise? How can others become wise? So when you say you want your nation to be the best nation, you cannot accept that you're having a best nation while you are making wars. It's not going to happen. This is what he said, a case of action because the end is merely doing well. So the end of applying it is doing well. So did I get your answer?
Yes, actually, and more. So it will be like my infrastructure, my thesis infrastructure that I will build the reconciliation idea on it.
Exactly.
As it's the map, the idea, the philosophy of what reconciliation should be.
Exactly.
Yes.
So applied Phronesis is a philosophy. It's not a reconciliation. It's a philosophy of how to develop to become a prudence. I like this by Habermas, who said, Phronesis is prudent to attain the best judgment of an argument. So how can you get the best judgment of an argument? We are fighting together. And how can you get the best judgment? I am right, or you're right. You are wrong. I am wrong. We are both wrong. We are both right. What is the best judgment? In war, in conflict, it might be reconciliation. They will say you peace. Okay, peace. But what is peace for me? Peace for you. We're fight for it. We're again back to what is the best judgment. So then we will say, okay, reconciliation, to reconcile with one another, with oneself, with the nations, with all of this. So and then what you are doing actually is conflict transformation. That's why I call it, we call reconciliation, conflict transformation, and peace studies. So, because there is a conflict transformation, people don't understand that that are in conflict, that once I go sign an agreement, why the agreement would fail? They signed an agreement and they say nothing happened because they both did not accept conflict transformation, or one of them did not accept, or both said, we don't want to do conflict transformation. We want to stay away from it. This is the right. They can stay away from it, but they cannot expect, okay, I don't do conflict transformation, but I do peace. How this happens? This can never happen.
And I think this is what I mean by emotional detachment, that I should, as a researcher in reconciliation, I should not draft with the emotion when I think how I can build a reconciliation with this case study.
Yeah, now this actually goes beyond this. No, you have to be in it. Now I will tell you how you have to be in it. Let me continue, and you will say, no, you have to be in it because you are part of the process as well. You're part of the applied Phronesis. So here is one of the book. The guy who I took from him is Bennett Floubiger. He's the most cited person in the world for developing research in mega projects. And I'm taking his courses and his program. He has only 15 people in the world that took his program until today. And I was astonished that I forgot to invite his assistant who wanted to be part of this project actually as well, part of this lecture. So Bennett Floubiger wrote Making Social Science Matter Again. So as you see in a lot of universities in the world that canceled, some of universities in the third world, let's say, they canceled social science. Nobody's studying social sciences. They were studying engineering, doctors, or the idea because they didn't know how to make social science matter again. Because now you understand, if they studied philosophy, they will understand that if you want to make change, social change, you have to understand the philosophy of how social change happens. Otherwise, you cannot say, I want to make social change. And in social sciences, is to make social change happen, you have to integrate. This is where interdisciplinary now is happening in the world, in academia. If you want to do research without having integration of different disciplines, you're not working to develop change. And today, social science has evolved. Why? Because social science is not studying one people or group of people. It's studying the world. And it's not studying one discipline as it was, it's studying multidisciplinary. So social science became one of the most important because they were developing big data, and then develop the data science, and then develop how to understand the data analysis, and using data analysis to understand what we will do in the conflict, and understanding a lot of situation, economy, political, cultural, you can understand from the data itself. And now you have war between the US and China, who reserve the data. So if you have let's say, for example, the data that comes from your Samsung phone, for example, it goes to China. And the people who are using the iPhone, it is in the US, in the Apple, in Google servers. And who is using TikTok is in China. And who is using Facebook, it's in the US. The US is responsible. So this is what now we call something now. And now we have developed the AI, the artificial intelligence and machine learning, who can understand the data, not understand the data, but can analyze the data for us to understand it. So the machine learning is trying to do what the brain is doing and giving it to us. That's where it's called ANN, and there's like, so that's where the AI comes. So that's where the machine learning comes. That's where like we develop something called digital humanities at the end. So you have big data, you need to analyze it, and you need to understand what's the importance of data. And the data can tell you a lot of stuff about people, about where they live, their culture, what they want in the future, everything. And even you can know if they're going to act into violence. So this is how it evolved. So this it starts with applied phronesis. So I took the Phronesis approach from Piaget and I developed it into the applied reconciliation process. And it went to this is one of his books. It's called Making So it was sold over 100 million sellers. So this is also a good book, Applied Phonetic Social Science, Real Social Science Applied Phronesis. So this is how you develop the applied phronesis social. These are about 10 projects here in this book. Each project costs about like $10 billion or $5 billion. And it can tell you how you can develop your project. You have to apply the philosophy. And then to develop the philosophy in a way that it is working and I will show you some of it. So also this is my book, where my book is the methodology. Anyone who wants my book, I can send it to you for free. Send me an email and I'll send you my book and my ebook. And there you can apply the methodology of applied phronesis. It tells you exactly how you can apply it in your research. So I was in Harvard, and the first thing, the head of the computer science professor said one thing. It goes all back to philosophy. So anyone here, you don't want to do applied phronesis, it's fine, but maybe you have to check other philosophies that Aristotle did, or maybe the Kantian philosophy, or maybe, because this kind of philosophy, if you can build it into practice, and then you can build a lot of knowledge on it and develop a whole. So you have to think what kind of philosophy that you are trying to research in your dissertation, in your work. So here I will show you something what we were talking about for the whole time now. So you have societies in transition. This is how applied phronesis is working for a reconciliation process. So you have the epistemology, the knowledge, the how-to, or the know-how. And then you have here the technique, the how-to. ICT for reconciliation practice, the how-to transitional shifts. So it's how-to, and then I want to combine them together. Now, Abdullah said that I don't want to put myself into the research. That's not correct, by the way, because you have to. What they call the Phronesis. The Phronesis is the person who understands how to apply epistemology and technique within the conflict and to try to apply them the right way. So if you apply them the wrong way, you get to normalization. But you cannot say that I developed normalization, no, because the tools were wrong and they were done wrong, and they were not accepted by both parties. So for if you want to say that you never did wrong, you didn't steal the land, and then you say we didn't occupy, or we didn't kill the people, we didn't commit atrocities, and then you want to do peace without accepting this, then you did not do apologies. Can you apologize for something you never did? Then there's no healing. And then if you can, this is where the Phronesis way can say stop. This is not apology. This is not peace. You're not doing peace building. You're doing real, had nothing to do with what you were writing about. So this is also kind of another aspect that you look. So you apply, so he applies epistemology technique, and then you get to reconciliation process, the know-how plus the how-to. And here, to get to epistemology, as you see, you have to apply the mechanism, strategies, methods. So you have to know those methods. And then you have to understand the technology, the tools for transitional justice. Now here where it becomes more, once the Phronesis starts doing both together, integrating, what happens here is what you call the ultra-dynamic powers. Why we call it ultra-dynamic powers? Because there are power shifting, power relations between both. And the ultra-dynamic power was taken from Nietzsche for the power relations that Fleuve-Béget applies into developing an integration between the epistemology and technique, where then it will go into prudence. So if we put that reconciliation to reach for prudency, it will be between epistemology and technique. And to get there, you have to do the right thing. And then what we will see, this is the ultra-dynamic power relation, where the strong become weak and where the weak become strong. So where I say, let's say, I take apology as an example. The strong wants to keep the apology, to say to the world, I did the apology. The weak wants to take the apology from the strong because he gave it to him. If you do not accept what I'm doing, then I take the apology back. So this will take irrational power. The shift of powers, the ultra-dynamic power. This is where reconciliation changes the weak into a power person. He has no money, he has no weapons, but what is happening, he has so much power that's shifting towards him. This is where Aristotle said people don't understand this. That the power is not just things that you have or own, or money that you have in your hand. Power can also be an abstract powers. And this is where what was called by Bennett ultra-dynamic powers of shifting. And this one is shift. Now, of course, as a weak person, now I have power. Do I want to give it away? No. So I will leave the apology with him. So I gained my power. I stayed. This is what I say balance. So reconciliation as well did a balance. So it shifted people from the middle up a notch. So it lifted up a little bit. See how this arrow from here to here, as you see, it goes into spins. And it's spin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It keeps spinning like a drill. But if you do it wrongly, it will not do that. But if you do it rightly, it will do that. Because you have two people who are in conflict. One gave the forgiveness and one took the forgiveness. The one who took the forgiveness wants to keep it. And the one who gave who to forgive wants to negotiate if he wants to keep it or take it away. So this develops the powers of between two, and this is a big power. Now, here is what happened in many conflicts. Why then you have, for example, people in the same conflict that are going for the same cause, but they are in conflict because they did not share the power. So sharing power is also part of it. So one of parts did not share the power that he gained from his enemy. He didn't show that the power was there. You understand? I hope that people understand what I was talking about. So this is how this is applied for Phronesis. Now here is the Phronesis. The Phronesis has a lot of work to do and put himself in. Here is what he has to do. So I will show you this, and then we can go more. So this is Abdul Rahman. This is who you are. So you are the guy who's gonna develop the practice. You're a guy who's the reality. What is the reality? So if you say a wrong reality, then your practice is thrown in the garbage. Values, you have to say what are the values. You have to say where is the power. And then you have the dialogue. Where is the dialogue going to happen? So these are the aspects you bring in. And you have joint structure, and then this, and then you go up to mixed methods of how to develop it. And you go here, some aspect that I did, and this is how I did in my book, and you have to see how you get into applied phronesis practice. So there is a practice for it as well. As you see here, there's a tension point problem reason for action social change. So as you see here, when the Phronesis works, what he's doing is applying a design, and then he applies the ethnography or the tools, let's say. And what happens here is there's tension point. The tension point is the reason of action that changes the action that develop what we call social change. This is ICT for reconciliation process. So the social media, for example, what it does tension point between people, and it challenges people's and its narratives. So for example, you never visited your friend, but then you see he lives very good. He eats your same food, but you're in conflict with him. Why should, then there's a problem. There's a reason for this problem. And because there's a problem, there's first tension, it creates a problem. And from the problem, you want to reason of an action. And that action will do social change. Now, social change does not mean for good or for bad. This is where you have the values. So you have to say whether what is good and what is bad for you. So you may say that occupation is good for me. So this is where it happens. Conflict is good for me. This is what Ledrick said about the complementary element of conflict. So some of the conflict, what happened to it, they become complementary element. For example, many reconciliation, they failed because they became, instead of a way for transformation, they became a complementary element. They need the conflict. People, we call them warlords. Warlords, they need the conflict. People who are the elites, they need the conflict. Well, they are very rich and they're ruling. Why should they to do peace with who? So this also have to understand the value, the reality, the practices, the power, the dialogue, all of this. This is the Phronesis brings him. Once the Phronesis puts it and brings in the right way and the power, ultra-dynamic way, he loses the power. This is where the Phronesis, as a researcher, loses the power. And the power becomes between the conflict, within the people in the conflict. So where it goes, it's not your power. When they tell you don't put yourself in the research, there's something, don't do the bias. For example, I come from Palestine and I work for the Palestinian, I do the benefit of the Palestinian people, for example, or for the Jordanian, or for the Qataris, or for the Saudi Arabians, or for Egyptians only. So this is bias. This you cannot, this is what when they tell you don't put yourself in the research. But we need your knowledge. Like I cannot bring someone to write about the Korean, South Korea, and North Korea relationship and reconciliation process from Jordan. He will not know details. We say God is in detail or the devil is in the details. So, and the culture. So I read, someone said God is in the details. And because you see God's work, and someone said the devil is in the details. So you have to know where which action and where you are taking this, what way you're taking it. So this is like if you want to study, you can study it. The study is different than what we are doing. We are researching, and we're doing the reconciliation and peace work. So this is not just a study. This is a research that has a study, as Aristotle said, and has the element of epistemology and the practice. So we want to develop social change. So reconciliation is a transdisciplinary research. So you cannot say I'm studying, because you have to study different disciplines, understand how they work, and how to integrate them together to develop social change. So this is applied phronesis. And then you have, inshallah, you become a wise person. So this is part of...
Dr. Riyad?
Yes?
May I... Isn't ethnography apart from the mixed methodology?
It's different, but we'll come to it in the different lecture, the ethnography, because I don't want to now talk about it because it's different. But here is the road of taking the theoretical foundation framework. Again, what is? I didn't understand the question again.
I mean, when I use ethnography, isn't or when I use a mixed methodology, is it ethnography is a tool from the mixed methodology that when I depend on mixed methodology, I will use also ethnography. It's not a separate method or a separate science, I think.
Yes, no,
right,
it is. So mixed method research design is a method for developing a research. Ethnography is also a method because like methodology have 4 aspects. So you each study the narrative of a person, of develop a case study, or the ethnography. So our ethnography today by Robert Koznetz, that's what he said, or then phenomenology. So what I do here is phenomenology. Phenomenology is like the philosophy of science and apply it into a methodology. This is a phenomenology, something new that is really happening, and you are developing it, and you get a new, and there is then also the ground theory. So all of these are methods that you are using in your research. Now, what we are doing in applied philosophy is the philosophical foundation or theoretical foundation. So we call it applied philosophy or the theoretical philosophical foundation for my research. So you apply philosophy and then you apply above it mixed method research design to understand how it's working, and then ethnography, and then you have qualitative and quantitative analysis, and then you can write your conclusion. So this is the roadmap. So actually your question was in this exactly where I am now. So if you see here, applied Phronesis, the theoretical framework foundation, and then the phenomenology of ICT and phonetic social science, and then you have mixed method research design. This is what's taken from John Searswell, complex mixed method social justice research design. I have his book, by the way, I found it today after a long time, you know. He has 4 books, 5 books, and he's from the University of Nebraska, professor of mixed method research design, and he has excellent books, and I promote that you can read them. We'll go through them in other session. And you have ethnography approach for reconciliation, and then you have the methods for reconciliation process, and then you have qualitative, and then the social change to work. This is the road that you have to understand how to do the research. So here I will answer also now we are gonna do applied Phronesis for not just one person, we are doing it for social science or for social media and how it works. So how applied phonetic internet research methods for social change or social transformation. So what we did exactly, we do the epistemology, and then we have the technique, the social media. We use all the social media to apply the tools of apology, forgiveness, all the tools that we did before, step by step, not all of them at once. We can even not apply them all. We can apply only one and make a lot of work about it. And then you have the Phronesis, and then those both two, once you start writing, you can understand, you develop the mixed method research design, use the ethnography tools, and then you do qualitative and quantitative analysis, and you get the results. And then the results, you can say where apology did not work because this, what is really wanted. So you understand then, like, why did not apology work? Why forgiveness did not work? Why truth and commission did not work? Why the practices of reconciliation did not work? Or maybe they did work, in some occasions they did work. So you understand that, okay, where did it work? We can use those and we can continue building on it. So this is where like reconciliation process is going above. But you see how we used the applied Phronesis from technique to epistemology, and it did what we call drilling. You know, the drilling, we are drilling into the mind of the people. And once you drill applied Phronesis, it gets up to the hill for prudency, but you never get to prudent. You keep working to become prudent. So you are doing your PhD, you become a doctor, you become a postdoc, you become a associate, and you become a professor, and you become then internationally very well known. You have many books, and then you got emeritus professor, and then you're still publishing books. So did you reach prudency? So people tell me, I want reconciliation today. Not going to happen today. So here are as you see, Hungarian perspective, reconciliation method and process, ICT recursive phenomenology for social change towards the reconciliation process. So I said about the ICT is going into rounds, the drilling.
Dr. Ayad, can I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
on the same slide. When I use, this is a technical question, when I use in vivo to have like a social media network analysis, and like, let's say I have 10 hashtags that I want to analysis. So as I understand from you, I will use each one alone, or I will use it I will put it on in vivo on one sheet and analysis all on the same time.
So as you want. It depends what you want. You have to
But
do.
what like from your experience, what is the most like recommended for these kind of studies? Like,
Well, I did it for about I did it for 3 types of I did it for Facebook pages, 2 Facebook pages. One was about promoting Islam, and they speak only about religion, and one about promoting methodology of wasatiyya, moderation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and one was about the website. So, and the flow, and then I connected the Facebook pages with the website and see how people can go and interact. And then we develop a conference. So you see people were online, social media, went from the social media to the website, interacted into the website, what's happening. And then from the website started having their own group. And from their own group, they went into from all online to offline. So you can see how the change is happening. Now for the analysis, you can do what you do what you think is best. That's why you are Phronesis. But you have not to be biased. So you have to understand this is what you have to bring with you. This one. So you have to understand, you have to bring the practice, the reality, to think of the reality, the values, and the power and the dialogue that you are doing. So you are the directing person. You have the car, and people are sitting with you. So you have to see where you're directing it. So after we do this, did I answer your question?
Yes, and I have also another question. Okay, I am who driving the car, but let's say how I know that I am driving on the correct road without losing like much time, like when I do a research after 1 year, if I do the analysis, then I see that I am what I built my research on is already wrong, so I will start again. So how can I like?
Don't think you started again. You just know the right path. You cannot know the right path from the start if you don't try. So there's a word I can teach you how to. I can fish for you or teach you how to fish. So yes. When you start fishing, you're not gonna get the good. You're gonna stay for hours and hours and hours, and there's no fish at all. And then when you start going somewhere else, then you understand. Oh, I need to think where are more fishes are. But you cannot go back where there's no fish anymore. So you have to do something about it. So if you've discovered that, it's good that you discovered, because you would fail. A lot of people, like my friend, one of, I don't want to say that wanted to apply for a PhD, he has a big, good researcher. But his problem, he's doing MPhil. Why? Because there's no contribution to science. So if your research does not transform into contribution to science, into theoretical framework, a new theory for yourself, and that you discover something new, then maybe your hypothesis, you discover that it is wrong. That's also correct. Then people don't have to, why did you tell you do some literature review? Because they want to understand if your research, you yourself have to understand that the research that they're doing is new. Otherwise, if someone else did it, so then you have your answer from him. So it depends on the literature review that you do, that you understand where you're going. So I think it depends. Yeah, this is my answer for you actually at that time. But it's good that you found yourself that you need, it's not bad that you found that you need to do everything again. No, it's good. It means you're gonna rewrite it a better way and develop it better, like the title of a dissertation changes until the last day. It changes. You're not going to stay the same title. You're going to find a lot of stuff in your research, going in and out, a lot of stuff that you do not know. You didn't come knowing. This is actually a good question, because some people don't understand that doing a dissertation means you're doing something you don't know. So don't expect that you know. This is the same knowing the unknown. This is the new philosophy that we're going, but I'm not going to speak about it. But it's good that it's knowing the unknown to know the unknown. It's very complicated, but it's very nice. It's new, and it's being studied today at Harvard. There's a professor who's trying, and also in Oxford. Actually, Bennett Floubiger is doing it as well. To understand the unknown and to study unknown to know the results of the unknown before doing the known. So but the good thing, the funny thing, it goes back to Aristotle, to applied Phronesis. So if you understand the philosophy, so always think of philosophy. What is philosophy? I think that people should read the Nokimian Ethics, one of the books that should be read, because you can find a lot of philosophy that can be part of your dissertation, be the foundation of your research.
Can you please write the title on the chat so I can?
Yeah, I will in a bit. I will get the right name, exactly how it's being written. So here's, I want to see that's last before I think we need to go to break. Is that okay? But I will explain this. This is part of applied Phronesis, how it changes for many people. So what happened exactly here? Okay, what happened? You had one person who become wisdom, okay, wise, is working in the tools of reconciliation, and then he has another person who is working as well, and there's another person who is also working. But this is what social media helps. This is where I told you big data became very important, because it can touch 1, 2, 3, and they both are working into it, and this will develop what we call the power element, ultradynamic powers. So the ultradynamic powers are the powers that are created between mixing the epistemology and technique with one and the other guy. This is where dialogue, this is where Perdue comes in. Perdue is a French philosopher, and he had the communication theory. So when we talk with each other and we share information, this is communication theory. And this kind of communication theory, it evolves between both of us. I get your knowledge, you get my knowledge. It's called knowledge exchange, and it flips. I become more knowledgeable, you become more knowledgeable. This is wisdom. So you come more into the Phronetic way. So if we can understand what is the reconciliation process for my enemy, and what is my reconciliation process, and how we can work together to develop a new reconciliation process that are going to a peaceful reconciliation process. So this is your piece, my piece is becoming integrated together. So this is where it flips, the drill starts happening. And if you have more than one people is doing it, then you have people that are being evolved into this. And this is what we have then what we call the power relation, and the power relation changes. This is from Nietzsche, where you go about power relations and how power relations can develop ultra-dynamic powers, where it can change between one to the other and the other into one, between each other. And if you, with social media now, I'm not doing it like I had over 2.5 million viewers in the Facebook page for the last sermon. You have to watch this last sermon. Is a very good documentary about the bombings of terrorists. And the last sermon was about this guy who was doing about Marwan Barghouti's movie. And he went to a bar in Tel Aviv to drink. And the guy who bombed himself in 2003 was beside him, and he bombed himself while he was standing beside him. So the director from Hollywood lived, and he said his story, not just about the bombing in Tel Aviv, but he said about the bombing itself in different places around the world, and why it is happening, and and then it goes down back to politics. So if the bomber himself knew that he's doing something, that he was thinking that he's doing something for God, but now at the end, if he knew in the future, it will be just for politics, it will be like he did bombing for nothing, because at the end, it became politics. If any bomber knew that politics will happen, it will lessen the radicalism. The movie has a very good, won 3 prizes. And I think you're welcome to watch this. This is part of how social media, I'm talking about it because I was the guy responsible for the social media actually, and I had over 2.5 million viewers and 700,000 comments. One is with the bombing, and ones are without bombing, and one is whether it represents Islam, and one is without representing Islam. and why it is being bombed. Not just there was bombing in Turkey in different places and different. So this is part of what we are dealing with. So this is and this is just the idea of to show you how social media can affect many people, and it depends what you are doing in it. Okay, so here we can maybe, Rawan, do you like to speak a little bit about the activities that maybe we started after the break? What do you think?
Yes, so we go for 5 minutes break, 7 minutes maximum. Then we come back to groups, but we will do right after you come back, we will divide you into 3 groups, and you give you the opportunity to decide on which conflict you would like to analyze. We will share with you a Google Doc, so each group will get 1 Google Doc to work on the metrics that we have for analyzing a conflict based on the applied phronesis. We will give you 20 minutes to work in your group. Then you come back to the main meeting room where each group has 5 minutes to present their findings. Then as a whole group, we're going to discuss the 3 conflicts, and then Dr. Iyad is going to share extra conflicts as well and analyze them.
Thank you very much, Rawan. So we have, how much we have for a coffee?
I said 7 minutes, and that's 7 minutes German time. So exact 7 minutes from now.
We are culture sensitive. Professor Dietrich told us I learned from him the idea of culture sensitive, whereas culture sensitive, we need it.
But the problem is that we're going to have groups to start working. So if everybody joins 10 minutes later, we won't have enough time to work in groups.
Okay. So we have a coffee for 5 to 7 minutes. For me, it's culture sensitive. For Rawan, it's exact German time. So
exact German time.
Okay.
Okay, so we are back. Is everybody back here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm back.
Perfect.
Me
And
too.
welcome, Professor Leonard.
Hello, Professor. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Camera does not function well, but I hear you also very well and see you. So greetings to everybody.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
We are now in phase we have said about reconciliation. I can actually just tell Professor Lyon to update him in 5 seconds. Is that okay, Rawan?
5 seconds, okay.
Yeah, 1 minute maybe. So so we have, like we talked about reconciliation, as you know, the whole aspect how we did it, and then we show them a little bit of how our Indiana approach of reconciliation in it, and the tools of the reconciliation.
Mhm.
And then we went into the tools and strategies. So we went all about tools, and then we talked about some strategies, how it's being done. And then we had some coexistence. And this was interesting actually for me, because this is from the Book of Dead and the 4 gods who are trying to do justice for someone, for one of the pharaohs. And this we talked about how conflict in the middle of conflict, reconciliation in the middle of conflict can happen. And this is how it can create new reality. So the reality changes. And this is like we talked about the words in Arabic on reconciliation. And then we had some of the disarmament, demobilization. This we do not place of diplomacy. We talked briefly on, not very briefly on them, refugees. So this is all practices. I think this I did not see before, but I was asking Gurwan about them, but it's okay. Yeah? So after that, we went out, and then we talked about Phronesis. And we talked about how it's being done and the whole road for it. And now we are into the phase number 4 of our session, which is about the workshop that Rawan will lead us into it. And maybe Rawan, you can tell the workshop how it's going to work. And I will help out if you have the Google Docs. So now we are doing a workshop. And the workshop is about how to apply Phronesis in conflict and the assessment. So we're going to do the practices. We're going to take the technique practices, the technique as we understood. And we have the epistemology, is a conflict. And we have to understand how to direct the conflict into the reconciliation process. So this is the workshop, is just like we try to make a small workshop, but then we'll see where it takes us. So Rawan, it is yours now. And let's say guide us and tell us how we're going to do the workshop.
Great. Thank you, Yad,
Yes.
for putting me in the picture. And I think it's great how you presented it, and also very beautifully done with a different presentation on the PowerPoint.
Thank you,
Great.
Professor.
Thank you.
Do you have any comment, professors, that you would like to share with us?
No, I think it's excellent. I'm listening and curious what came out from the work of the students.
Mm-hmm. So you are in the right moment, because now the students, they have to apply what they learned and see if they can succeed. So it's like now we are testing. So I hope, but it's a difficult research, but we'll try to do it in the amount of time that we have. So let's start. So if everyone is here now.
Okay, so we had a bunch of conflicts that we're suggesting that you can use, but if you have any other conflict that you prefer to apply, then feel free to do it. Then we came with the Irish conflict or Irish reconciliation, South African reconciliation, Sudan, then Korea, North versus South, the Colombian reconciliation, German-French, Algerian-French, Turks, and then the Algerian-Moroccan conflict or the Moroccan reconciliation. What we want you to work on is a matrix where we have fields, and you need to answer the WH questions for them. So where, who, why, what, how, and when. For at least try to fill as many as you can from the actors or fields of reconciliation process. Just think about the conflict and how can you apply it. So Dr. Iyad explained the technique and the knowledge, and now the how-tos and know-hows are supposed to be part of this matrix. We're going to divide you into 3 groups. I'm going to do it in breakout rooms, so not manually, but automatically. And you get 20 minutes to work on the documents. I'll be sharing documents like Google Documents for each group in the group. So we'll be visiting you in your breakout room. You have, again, the explanation of the activity, the list of conflicts, and some tips to consider when choosing your conflict. Do you have any questions before we divide you into groups? Or do you have any preferences?
So maybe I would explain a little bit more about the table. I think it would be good to explain them. I think it's the same table, right, Rawan? It's
Yes, it is the same, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I would like to explain just a little bit of what is the process. So you understand it's about a process of developing a conflict assessment towards the reconciliation process. So usually in any conflict, so you're not to be biased. You have to develop those lenses, and those lenses, we create them. So we created like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lenses. And those lenses are where, who, why, what, and how, and when. So the first lens will say where, understanding the context, where it happened, where is it, where, this is the question you should ask yourself about it. Who, identifying the stakeholders. So who are the people that are in conflict, who are benefiting from the conflict, who wants to finish the conflict, who are living out of the conflict, who are selling the warlords of the conflict. Why? Uncovering motivation. Why is it happening? Well, some people, I love my conflicts. Why should I end it? I'm a billionaire. So people are dying. People die every day. So the motivation is very important. And then mapping. So we have a mapping system. So you have to map the conflict, the mitigation conflicts. So we have, so conflicts are intractable and protracted, and they keep on going. So we have to learn how, why, when, what. It keeps in. This is the mapping of the mitigation of the conflict, how sources and the uses of power. So we send up the power relation. So, you know, always you have power in the conflict, and there's a power relation. You have to understand who is the biggest power. US, Afghanistan, you have Pakistan, you have Iran, you have Israel, Jordan, you have who are playing powers. Timelines, triggers, and windows. So it's like when. So we, now all of this are talking about the conflict, but then we added something. Now we put our antidote for the conflict, which is reconciliation process. So how all of this conflict will happen? You have political and legal provisions. How can this happen? Where it can be happening, the conflict, what can happen to develop it, who can do it, and when can it be done? The rule of law, how can it have security, apology, sustainable economy, history and narrative, reparation, return of refugees, disarmament, demobilization, reintegration. So these are a minimum of, we have about 20, but Rawan said that we should not put all 20 because we don't have a lot of time. So these are elements toward the reconciliation process. And remember, reconciliation is not forget and forgive. It's forgive and develop a better common future. And how? This is the way, these are the tools. So you want to implement those tools in one of those conflicts, and you don't have a lot of time, and you have where, who, why, what, when, and how. And these are the antidotes that we gave you today. You can also use the internet if you like. It's fine. If you don't have information, we don't want you to like say, I don't have information about this conflict. I don't know what to do, but you can go online and research about it and find the antidote. You have like the antidote is reparation. Where did reparation happen? And can it happen in this conflict? And after a while, we will discuss it in each group. They will discuss it alone, and then we'll bring you back into the discussion. Any other questions? So Rawan, I give that to you now, and you can continue.
Okay, so I am sending you to the breakout rooms right now. Professor Leiner, if you get sent to the room and if you would like to stay here, just do not click on the join room. And I'll be visiting all of you to share with you the documents.
I think I will also join. I'm joining one of the rooms, I guess, or I should not join.
Yes, I think I will join. It's good.
I think I should not join. Just a moment. Maybe I should remove myself a moment. So I will be with you here. I'm in the room, by the way. So you can start or not yet? So people who are they are not in the room, not get sharing. Please, you can join any group. You just click on the join and you can enter. Hiba and Mazen, you can enter into the room. And Omar, Professor Omar, it's good to see you here. And Bayan as well, you need to join into the room.
Dr. Dajani.
Yes, Dr. Omar, Professor Omar, good to see you here.
Yes. Thank you very much. It's good to see you.
Same here. It's very good to see you. I think Bayan and Mazen should go into one of the rooms. Bayan, are you with us? Maybe I can tell them to unmute and let me ask. How are you, Omar? كيف حالك? دكتور عمر.
Yes. الحمد لله بخير. And you?
أنا منيح سمعنا صوتك.
الحمد لله.
شكلهم أستاذ مازن وبيان هدول حاطين داخلين عنا هيك.
متفرجين.
متفرجين. أستاذ مازن هيك معانا.
دكتور إياد أنا موجود.
لا ممتع كثير محاضرتك.
لا بس أستاذ مازن لازم تدخل جوا واحد من الجروب، روان هدول مش داخلين بالجروب ولا بيان ليش؟ أستاذ مازن تقدر تدخل بواحدة منهم.
أنا بعت لهم المفروض هم يعملوا جوين. مازن بتحب أعمل لك أنجوين وبعدين جوين كمان مرة عشان تنضم؟
في هبة كمان وفي عبد ربه العنازي بروفيسور كمان. We can discuss it here. You can open it here and we can discuss it here for one of us. احنا هذا جروب تاني. خلي هذا الجروب is okay.
I need to go to group number 1 عشان أعطيهم كمان اللينك.
Okay. أنا هون maybe we discuss with the group here عندي أنا. Okay. في هون عبد الغني وعبد الرزاق أنا مش حكون معهم بس أنا معهم بالجروب فمش عارف خلص أنا بحكي بالجروب الكبيرة. هيك دخلت هبة معهم أحسن.
بس لازم أعطيهم اللينك وهلأ برجع.
لا هبة جوا. احنا بنقدر ندخل نعمل نقاش هون بصير.
خليك لحظة واحدة أعطيهم اللينك وأنا برجع نشوف إحنا كيف حنرتبهم. أوكي.
أستاذ عمر كيف حالك دكتور عمر؟
أهلين يا هلا الحمد لله بخير.
وهنا كمان عبد رب عنازي. أنت دكتور ولا؟ اوكي. وخالد بيقاس اذا بتحبوا تدخلوا بواحد من الجروب او يضلك معنا فيش مشكله. هي بيان معنا كمان. زباين موجودة.
And Abdulrazak at the same time suffering from new laptop. So I think you should add more people here. If we are out, they can help more things. As you see.
You're supposed to be 7 people here.
خالد
So
بقاسي فيه.
let me check who is missing.
أنا بطلع برا روان، في عندي خالد بقاسي برا لو دخليه من الجزائر.
اوكي تمام، انا هلا بحاول بنقل خالد لعندكم.
اوكي ممتاز، انا طلعيني برا من الجروب زي او خليني عندهم مش مشكله، انا بحط
انت
ميوت.
بدك ترجع على المين ميتينج روم.
لحالي بقدر ارجع. سو ما بضل عندكم ان شاء الله اسمع شو بنقدر نحكي مع بعض. I think we should do it in English. Is that okay? Do it in English?
Yeah. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
As you wish. I think is good to do it in English. As you wish. I will just observe. I guess I'll try to help you because I will help other groups as well.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah, when you do it in
did
English,
not.
as well, we're going to explain it in English, so I'm not using Arabic. So
Yes, you are right.
Okay, Abed Rabo, where are you from? Just want to know where you're from because I did not.
Abdul Ghani or me?
No, you, Abdul Ghani. I know him very well.
Okay, yeah. So I'm from Morocco.
Good to see you. But you are in Qatar, right?
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So then it's best you are correct. It's in English, so you have to do it in English as well. And who's Abed Rabo Al-Anazi? Is that you, the same person inside or another person?
It's another person. Just
okay. I hope it's
if someone is writing Rabu Al-Anzi.
Yeah.
Abdul Rabu Al-Anzi.
Okay, he's with us now. So we'll do it in English, and Khalid Bigasi is also with us. So good. Maybe you can introduce yourself and you can tell each one who he is and everything. Rowan, maybe they can introduce themselves in the group. What do you think? Because or they get to know each other.
I can hear the group number 1 here in the main meeting room, so I'm not quite sure if it's because you're opening 2 mics or because you guys are here.
Okay, I shut off my mic. Now it's better.
I hear you now here. Yeah, so you're in the main meeting room now.
In the waiting room, I can leave. If it's
No, in the main meeting room, you're supposed to be with us, right? Or you want to move to work with them on the analysis and assessment?
So where now? How do we go? I can go into which group I want and get out, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm used to computers, so I will leave one. Okay, we'll leave this. It's okay. So did you share with them now? Share with them the documents.
Yes, all the documents are shared with them. And Noura, I'm just sending you now to group number 3.
So how they click on it? They click on it and it opens?
Yes, and they have access to it. I gave them all editing access.
How do you give access to all? They send to their email and it will open into the web? Okay.
No, I sent it like in the chat. So I joined each group and I told them which group they are.
Okay.
And then I shared the links.
And they will write where they will write. They will write or just discussion?
They will write. They will fill the.
Because I see you just shared the one that I shared. Where they will fill it inside the box?
Yeah, inside the boxes.
I don't see where. Here I click. Just a moment. Okay.
Yeah.
So they have to fill inside each box what they think.
Exactly, like the matrix.
Okay. Okay, that's a good. Okay. So I see here you and someone is a fish, anonymous dolphin. It's okay. So we are people here. So each group has the access to the same document or no?
No, each group has access to their document. Like all of them have access to all documents, but each group knows which group they are. So they open the document only for their group.
So you have a document for group 1, document for group 2, document for group 3, yeah? The box is too big for them or too small for them, the box?
They can play around with it. I mean, they can type in it, they can make it a portrait or landscape.
Oh,
That's
okay.
totally fine.
So Hiba admit to main session. She left and went to the main session.
Okay, where's
Here is
she
Hiba,
was
if you
in-
can get her back.
Yeah, but which group was she in?
My group. Ah, here's another guy who's coming in very late. Hamad Al-Hamasi, can put him as well.
Okay, so I'm sending people to group number 1,
Yeah. Well, no, group number 1 has a lot of people, maybe.
but only like active. There are 5. One of them is you.
Okay, put Al-Mahdi there. Al-Mahdi is good to be there. كيف حالك? Oh, they're 1 in 1. Okay, and I will be in one of the group as well. I will work with one of the group. دكتور عمر إذا بتحب تكون أنا بالجروب 1 أهلا وسهلا. Professor عمر أنت معنا؟ It's okay. I am in the group itself, so it's fine. I can just unmute myself here. Hello, مرحبا كيفكم؟ أنا بدي أشارك معكم. I will share with you, participate as well with you. So why are all of you are muted? I don't understand. Abdul Razak, are you with me? So we are unmuted. Everyone unmute so we can speak. So we have this on the Google Docs. Did you see it on the Google Docs? Do everyone see the one, or maybe we can share it? Maybe. Okay, wait. I open it and I share it, and then we can discuss it. Okay, just a moment. Abdul Razak, are you with us?
I believe Abdul Razak and Abdul Ghani have technical problems. So they're in and out, and mostly Abdul Razak has a problem with his new laptop, so audio is not fully fixed.
Okay. So someone asked for help. Can you go inside and check? Or I should go inside. Do you see it?
Who asked for help? Where? In the breakout rooms?
Room 2.
In room 2. Do you want to go there?
No, you go. I'm in room 1, and
Okay.
I'm helping in room 1. So, hello everyone. Can you help? Are you there with me? I'm going to share the document and let's talk about it. Here I shared it. Okay. So, Hiba, how are you, Hiba? Are you with me, Hiba? Ahla wasahla, Mahdi. Mahdi, are you with me? People are here, but not opening the mic. I can't. I'm not hearing you guys. Sorry, now, can you hear me?
Yeah, I do hear you. I do hear it clearly.
Okay, excellent.
Shared now, yeah.
So let's have the discussion about how we're gonna do this. So which conflict did you like? You want to work on?
And we work on Sudan, Doctor.
Sudan? Okay. Are we all on Sudan? Okay, Hiba, let's work on Sudan.
Okay.
Okay, so where Sudan is, so we have where the first question on Sudan. So we have the whole question on understanding the context. What is the problem in Sudan? And someone has to write. So who will write? Someone has to write. So we have to start like this. Who's going to write, guys? I have also, I can write here. Where? So Sudan is what we are going to study. Sudan. Excellent. So we'll start with the word first lens. It's called where. So let's discuss it. So here's some tips about that we can use. Apologies. political and legal. Can we do any political and legal provisions in Sudan? What do you think? Hiba?
Hiba, political.
Hiba, are you with me?
Yes, with you, doctor. Yes, we can do. We can make. Just let me see, please. We can make political. Just the first sentence. We can make political. What's mentioned above? Sorry.
Political and legal provisions.
Yeah, political and legal provisions.
Okay, so this is good in Sudan.
Yes, we can make. For political and.
So what we say, yes?
And
I don't know if
yes.
Oh, so we put yes here, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So number one, Dr. Iyad, the rule of law.
Yeah.
Actually, it needs development. It needs more steps.
So where is it here? Who, why, where, what, and how? So so when you say rule of rule of law, where we did it? It's Sudan, and you can do political and legal provisions.
Yeah, yes, I need your help, Doctor. When we talk about rule of law, actually we need more improvement for the current status. So actually, what can we do here? So
you can write more improvement. First, why you can do provisions, because you said you need more improvement, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Improvement of what exactly?
More improvement to accept the rule of to accept the principle of the rule of law in the country.
Okay, we put it here.
What do you think, Dr. Iyad?
Yeah. Improvement, let's fix improvement. Okay, anyone has other ideas?
Yes, can I talk about the rule of law?
Yeah, you can. You have, look, you have where do you think the rule of law can happen in Sudan? Who can implement the rule of law in Sudan? Why, what, and how, and when. So these you have to, for the rule of law. So now.
Yeah, I think the rule of law should be, the law should be executed or carried out well there.
This is here, how?
They have theoretical, they have theoretical rules and the laws, but they don't apply them very well. Because I think that maybe the people in power don't want to apply the rules in the right way in order to protect their own interests.
Excellent. Now, Hiba, you said, I put it here in the how. Hiba, you said political and legal provisions can happen, but where should you put it? Where, who, why, what, and how they can happen? Do you have any answer for those questions? So let's say, why do you think political and legal provisions can happen? This is the why. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
To build a good future, let's say.
Okay. And how? Do you know how?
How we need to review the current situation in all its aspects, actually.
Okay, excellent. Let's go down to security.
Yeah, it needs, they need to work on the security, actually, because the...
So who, let's say, who can...
Yeah, exactly.
So who? The army?
The government and the army.
I think the international bodies should interfere, like UN. Yeah.
NGOs. But at the beginning, Dr. Iyad, we must start with the government itself and the army, right?
No, this is discussion. Now the idea is to, right, if we want. The idea is to develop reconciliation, how security can develop reconciliation.
how we can it internally and externally. Internally from the government and the army.
This is how. How internally. Internally and
externally.
But when it comes to externally, as we have seen last week, the external force should be excluded because the peace and the reconciliation should be initiated from within the society.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's internally. It's excluding the international, international bodies and so on, because it needs to be from within the society.
So you are
the people and the military.
Security. So this is security. Yeah. Okay. Where we say Sudan here, we say where it's North Sudan, South Sudan, all of Sudan.
We need, can we, just 1 minute.
So let's fill one of the one row, and then we can fill all of them, I guess.
Yeah, as Dr. Omar mentioned here also, and we need a new, let's say, constitution.
So he said internally. So internally, security must be for Sudan. And uncovering motivation, why the conflict is happening in Sudan.
Why?
Yeah, for the why question. So why do we need security?
For,
so why security is important for reconciliation? So you understand, we're taking it for reconciliation.
Peaceful life there, and
as a step for a peace building.
A path for peace building.
Yeah, and they need economic.
Yeah.
Peace building. What mapping? اللي هو economic, let's say economic prosperity.
Mapping. What mapping?
Mapping is like a future perspective.
Yeah.
And what would drive them to have security? They'll have money, investment, economy will flourish, so economic prosperity.
Economic, number one, I think the improvement of economic perspectives.
Yeah. So we put it here in all of them.
Prosperity. Yeah.
So here who are the people who are going to do the political and legal provisions? Do you know?
The people themselves by the new constitution, let's say.
So you say constitution, new constitution.
Yeah, this is what Dr. Omar said now.
He's with us?
He's with us, yeah.
Okay. And where?
Where? Understanding the
context.
Like, what can we say, Dr. Iyad, here? Where?
Where do you want to do courts or military courts or people, government? So we have to understand that we want to direct the conflict. We don't want to analyze the conflict itself. We want to direct the conflict to reconciliation process. You understand?
Yeah, exactly.
So those tools can be transformed into the conflict assessment, or we can.
Domination of army.
Army? How can we say it? What did you say, Khalid?
Domination of army.
So you think that the roots? Okay. Okay, I got you. Yes. Yeah.
Domination of army. Oh, okay.
I think, why do you say domination of army? Like, yeah, the context. Yeah, it's a domination of army. The army is controlling everything. That's why they have it. Now, exactly, this is the context. The rule of law, what you are going to say about where is the rule, the context of the rule of law, understanding the context of the rule of law, that there is no rule of law. Now the rule of law is weak. right? Is not practiced.
It's not practice.
It's practice, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yani who, when. We put it here, execute and work the rule of law. This is good. Who should do the rule of law? Courts, right? Parliament?
Yeah. Parliament or the
African Union, for example.
Unions. What else? You have to understand, we're not just analyzing conflict, we want to direct the conflict to reconciliation.
Yeah.
So we want to implement the rule of law. The context is that the rule of law is not practiced. Who can do the rule of law? Parliaments and unions, courts as well.
Civil unions and political unions.
The role of African unions, Doctor.
Independent courts and judges.
Dr. Iyad, can we say about the political unions and the civil unions?
Of course. So we can put here civil unions. So we didn't put the when, so it's fine. We leave the when till the end. So we can. So we have here a little bit better. Okay, we can go here. Apologies. In Sudan, the apology will be between who and who. The context of apology between who and who, it will be in Sudan. If you want to do apology in Sudan, for example.
The army, actually.
The army and the people.
And the people, yeah.
Army.
But this would be possible.
Yeah, this is why reconciliation is there.
Exactly.
I mean the military. I mean the military body.
Exactly, the military body. This is what is true. So military and the people.
Yeah, I'd like for being late, but I'd like to add the parties.
The parties is like who? Here we can say parties, political parties.
Political parties.
Yeah, because here is the context. So the context, like who will do the apologies? The military and people. Who will work on it here? If you come here, where? And then why? Undercovering the motivation. Why? The apology is important. Why is the apology important to Sudan? Why? To understand the perspective, to accept the narrative of the other.
Yeah.
So if we go here as well, what? So we go under what? Mapping system, mitigation of conflict. So what will drive the two apologies? Do you know what will drive to apology? What would drive the Sudanese for apology? Maybe future
society.
What? What did you say again?
Society.
I hear the society. What the other word is?
Exactly. It's for a
local society.
Local societies. Oh, that's good. Exactly. So we go here as well. We go back again. Up. Sources of use of power. So who can bring the power to apologies? Drive the apologies, develop the power of the army, I guess, no military.
Who can, sorry, who can, cannot hear you.
Drive the apologies, it's political parties. So here's the question, you go to who, sources and the use of power. So who can use a power to drive towards apology?
The authority.
So authority, yeah. Maybe UN.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also the African as well, the African Union.
African Union, yeah, exactly.
So we don't want to solve the conflict. We want to drive the conflict to a reconciliation process. Okay, sustainable economy. So let's say understanding the context of a sustainable economy. How can we drive the Sudani conflict? International cooperation, no? Local and
international cooperation.
Please help me, because I know I can know the answers all, but I don't need to answer all of them.
Yeah.
So it's good. And then let's see now, sustainable economy, we go back up again and we see who can develop the who can develop sustainable economy.
Sustainable economy by having the work opportunities for a large number of people.
Okay, developing jobs. What else?
Basic rights to be respected.
Distributive justice.
Maybe restorative justice, I guess.
Distributive justice.
Okay, distributive justice. Yes, is good. You go back to the rule of law. This will be good in distributed justice. Will also be good in the rule of law. We can go back to the rule of law, and we can say what in the how. We can write like here down. You don't need just to fill exactly what is written here. So you can do one is here's one.
And this is number two.
And this is number two, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to have only one.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to have many, as much as you want.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go to the other one here. Why? Uncovering motivation. What? Are we leaving or no?
Are we leaving?
In 1 minute, yeah, in 1 minute. But she said we have 10 minutes, I think. But
yeah, in 1 minute. So we reach actually until here. What is it now? So who will speak on or I think who would like to speak in front of all groups? So we have to choose one, not me, of course.
And not me, because the internet.
Okay, who do you like? We see Abdul Razzaq, there is Hiba, and who is also Abdul Ghani. You don't want? El Mahdi, maybe he wants, I don't know. You have to choose one to speak to you. Yes.
Doctor, I don't mind, but I think it's better if Hiba, because she knows the context of the Sudan, maybe she can explain more, and she knows the context of the.
It's up to you. Yeah,
no problem. I can present Dr. Iyad, but actually there will be a.
Maybe if we all open our cams, it would be nice. Just a moment. I have a problem here. So can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I have two computers, so I have to manage this. So yeah, more than before now. What's happening here? Okay, we see we open for the discussion.
Yes, so sorry for the dictator mode. I gave you the 10 extra minutes because we agreed like 5 minutes before 30, and then I gave you also 10 minutes extra.
Hello?
Now we have 5 minutes and like really strict 5 minutes for each group to present their conflict, the conflict they chose, and what they feel so far, and how they're transforming the conflict into a reconciliation. You all have the opportunity, so everybody who wants to present have the opportunity to share screen. So maybe you can share screen, or you can ask me to share the screen and share your Google Doc if you want.
Also, you can choose one of you to present, right? Yeah, I was muted in my speaker. I did not hear what was said. So, yeah. Okay, yeah. Wait a moment. I still have the problem. Just a moment. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. When you unmute the other one, then we have a problem. But now all is good.
Let's try this one here. Yeah. Hello? Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, the tablets have more voice. I can hear better with the tablet, but maybe I can. put here and put the tablet on just a moment. So, still is not working. Okay, so it's better.
So no worries, Dr. Iyad, because you're not presenting. Who wants to present for group number 1?
I can present if I can present.
Okay, go ahead, Hiba. Do you want me to share your...
Yeah, can you please, Rawan, share the...
Sure.
Green.
Our incomes.
So here's Hiba. And can you see it?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Rawan. Yeah, it's clear now. Actually, we are group number 1, and we talked about the situation in Sudan and how we can make the reconciliation process in Sudan. According to the table that we have, actually, according number 1, we have the fields of the reconciliation process. If we will start with political and legal provisions. Now we can go to where, who, and the five W questions. Political and legal provisions actually, if we will start where, understanding the context, the actual context or the current context in Sudan, actually we can say the domination of the army. Who, identifying stakeholders, actually, we can make a new constitution by choosing the people themselves to have a new constitution for their own country. Why? Actually, to build for them a good future. And this is the main goal or the main aim for having the reconciliation process. What we can talk about economic prosperity. How actually to review the current situation in all its aspects, okay? When actually we couldn't have enough time to continue, actually, because of the our talks. Actually, number 2, we can talk about the rule of law, where the rule of law is not practiced actually in Sudan. Who, parliaments, unions, or independent courts, civil unions, actually. Why? More improvements to accept the rule of law. What? Economic prosperity. How we can have 2 aspects, the executed and work of law, and need to be applied, and number 2, the distributed justice. If we want to talk about the security as a factor, actually, or a reconciliation process, a step for reconciliation process, where it can be internally and externally, the government, the government and the army. Why? That we are talking about the reason, peaceful coexistence. Can we help me, Rawan, please, to continue the list? Yeah. And and why we are talking about that, to have another path for peace building. If we want to talk about apology, we can talk about military and people. The second factor, political parties. To accept the narrative of the other. The fourth column, it can be local societies, and we have the authority, the UN, or the African Union themselves. I think we couldn't continue the rest that we have to work on. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. We will. So you presented it in 4 minutes, so perfect. Now we move to group number 2 and then group number 3, and then we will open up for discussions about all of the conflicts together.
Thank you.
Thank you. So also like group number 2 and group number 3 worked on the same conflict. So it's interesting to see how they differently analyze the conflict and the reconciliation process. So group number 2, go ahead. So who wants to go from group number 2? I just shared the Google Doc for you.
Okay, so since no one is welcoming to present the conflict, I think they sacrificed me. So we struggled a little bit at the beginning to understand how the matrix works, and it took quite a while to start working, and we started working from the history and narrative to put the conflict into context, the origin of the conflict. So I'm talking about history and narrative here, where it's the Algerian soil, or geographically more of like North Africa, because Algeria as a country didn't exist as such back then, because it was somehow part of the Ottoman Empire, who we can talk about France, Algeria, France as a colonizer, and Algeria as the colonized country, and maybe the Ottoman Empire among the potential peace builders back then, because they tried to negotiate the liberation of the Algerian soil. Why? Maybe the colonial or imperialism trends, which were a thing back then in the 19th and first half of 20th century, and what strategic, geographic, economical expansion, how military occupation of the North African soil, and when, well, the between 1830 and 1962, this was the armed presence of the French people in or French army on Algerian soil. Now, for political and legal provisions, the conflict is still in discussion right now, and where I think both in France and Algeria at the same time, who France, Algeria, and maybe the UN. Why? Because there are many things that are still in discussion, such as an official apology by the French government in regards to the colonization of Algeria, the restitution of the archives, the restitution of the archives, yes, and maybe an official trial, and so on and so forth. Well, what I don't know what would go in this box. How? Well, a new convention and treaties that might take place between the two countries, and when? Well, since the independence, the official independence of Algeria in 1962 till the present day. I don't think there's we still have problems in security or disarmament or return of refugees in this conflict. I don't know how much time I still have.
1 extra minute.
Okay, so right now the problem or the conflict is axed on an official apology, because France right now does not want to give an official apology and wants to move forward to reconciliation without recognizing its error or mistakes in the past. And this is pretty much what Dr. Iyad was saying earlier in his presentation. So we can't make a reconciliation without talking about the past, without recognizing what we did. And that's pretty much what I can say about this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, actually.
Thank you, Walid. Now we move to group number 3. Who wants to present?
I'll take a start and would be very happy for teammates to interject whenever relevant. Yes, thank you. So we spent a lot of time at the very beginning of the assignment talking about a few sort of key important starting points. So one of our questions was really about, do we start a conflict mapping of this nature with the actual conflict at the time? How far back in time do you go? Do you look at the actual commencement of the violence or the upheaval, or do you look at the relevant actors and locations at the reconciliation process? So there was some back and forth about that, which I think is still an important question, perhaps for us to address as a group. But we looked at in the same context in the Algerian-French reconciliation. There is a current reconciliation process that Macron is leading currently, which is an establishment of this Memories and Truth Commission that we've listed there in that last column. And we talked about, of course, the locations that we're looking at is, of course, the geographic locations of Algeria and France. And then we spent a lot of time also talking about the actors, the relevant actors, because if we look back at the conflict itself, there are numerous actors. There are political parties at play. There are the proxy wars. There are international actors and regional actors that had various vested interests that were at play during the time of the conflict or the colonization of Algeria by the French. But in terms of the reconciliation process and the question of who is a relevant stakeholders, we had a lot of conversations around that. So we thought it made sense that it was the state of Algeria and the people of Algeria, many of whom have been victimized by colonialism. When it came to picking out individuals or organizations or groups within France, we had some interesting discussion. Of course, the state makes good sense. There was also a question about whether in a democratic republic that the people of France are also responsible, given that they elect their leaders and can unelect their leaders. Also, civil society organizations, museums, institutions that perhaps have ownership of cultural heritage and other artifacts that come from Algeria, whether they are weak institutions or strong institutions, and to what degree they should be included in a mapping process of this nature. And then we had a conversation about the settlers, French settlers who had lived in Algeria at the time and had been expelled at the end of the war in the beginning of the Algerian independence, and had been victims of the suicide attacks, the suicide bombing attacks and the terrorist attacks of the time, and whether they are to be included in a reconciliation process, given that from their perspective, they were living in parts of France and many in a part of France in that they had moved there, often were people from underprivileged locations and had moved to what is now Algeria as an economic opportunity to make a better living, have farms and so on for their families, and had then been forced out in the early 60s when France became a republic. So that's an interesting question, I thought, as well, in terms of to what degree is justice served? How are you able to, the connection between reconciliation and justice, which is reflected by the people that you include in this kind of a process. And so that was the extent of our conversations. I'll open it up to my team if they have any other input that they'd like to add before we close our presentation.
Yes, maybe to this point, I think reconciliation has always this approach of inclusiveness to bring all people who can be stakeholdered in some sense and can be helpful or have something to be healed inside. It's not such much like transitional justice or a law-led discussion where you select already the people who talk is already a power question. Those are respected and those not, and those should not speak because it could create problems or it would be unjust that they speak. This was a bit the discussion on this point. So my point was we make reconciliation, we make not transitional justice or international court, and their inclusiveness also of people who might be both perpetrators and victims is interesting and maybe helpful because they can be a bit in the middle. This was a bit my point, and others in our group more said from a justice point of view, there should be also clear that the injustice of colonialism was much bigger than this injustice of those people who were forcibly displaced in the 60s. So this is just to clarify. I find this part an interesting discussion also.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Professor. Likewise, it is a very interesting and relevant, I think, for many of our work.
So thank you, Professor Leiner, and thank you all for presenting and working on your cases. Do you have any questions or remarks on the different cases or the different analysis from other groups?
I wonder if we can ask questions about the process in general, or if that's the next part where we'll go into the process and ask all of the confusing, work out all the confusion that we had with the matrix. Is that now or is it later?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Noura. Yeah.
So just my initial question just was, when you start a mapping of this kind, you go back to the time of the conflict itself. I mean, obviously some of those players are no longer active. So if we look at the Ottoman Empire in terms of Algeria, for instance, or if you look at the different political parties in power in Algeria at that time, they are no longer relevant now because they don't exist anymore. But I wonder to what degree in a mapping process you go back to the conflict and map those actors out and those locations out, or if you simply take a much smaller group that is relevant for practical purposes now.
So I'd like to comment. Just a moment. Yeah, now okay, maybe I would like to comment about it. So I get some, can you hear me now, I guess?
Yes.
Okay, I know, now I understand the problem. I have two mics, two microphones at the same time, so.
And two speakers
actually about it is, the process is about developing an assessment for conflict towards the reconciliation process. So what we were doing is understanding the conflict. I don't know if I can show you this. So can you go up one a bit for so to show that a little bit what we were doing. So it's like when you have a conflict and you want to understand the conflict, you have to ask the lenses of the conflict assessment. Yeah, that's good. That's better. So we can open now, we are now in the big room and we can open discussion how to develop the conflict towards the reconciliation process. So some people fell in, as I see, fell in the aspect of the conflict and they were like analyzing the conflict, exactly. But then after you analyze the conflict, you have to go back to the map of reconciliation tools and understand how you can, it's the kind of the antidote for the conflict to develop it towards the reconciliation process. So one of the issues was legal provisions. So like in Sudan, there's no legal provisions because the military rule is ruling. And how can you understand that the power of military can get away, maybe with apologies and forgiveness, or maybe they can start writing a constitution. So you have all these aspects and they have the whole why, when, who, and where that you need to answer that can direct you to the world's assessment of the conflict and go into the reconciliation process. But after you do the assessment, why, when, who, and where, you have then to apply the reconciliation tools and understand where it's going to take you. For example, let me, this I can. So for example, if we can here come to, let's say, the field of the context, the colonization of Algerian soil. I have this opened, I don't know why, but it's okay. So for example, this is the context of the conflict. And then how can we develop, who can develop political and legal provisions, why these political and legal provisions are wanted, and what can they help map the conflict towards what exactly, how can political and legal provisions lead to reconciliation? This is where you go here. When, how long do you need it? Like you can start and you say after 3 years, I want to evaluate it, 3 years, 5 years. Then you go to the rule of law, for example, rule of law, and then the rule of law, you can speak about where should be implemented, who should work on the developing the rule of law in the country. For example, why we needed courts, for example, some people said parliaments, some people said unions to the rule of law, to develop the rule of law. Some of it's constitution, how it's going and when and how long it can be in the conflict to develop the reconciliation aspect. The other aspect is security, for example. You put those lenses, where, who, why, what, and how, when. Some people get lost there. Then you do the understanding of where is the context, who, identifying the stakeholders, potential peace builders, why, uncovering motivations to why the motivation of the conflict, where Ledrick said a contemporary element of the conflict. This is a motivation itself. So you have people who are benefiting from the conflict and they want the conflict to stay. And then how can peace builders remove this? Let those people who are benefiting from the conflict accept to relinquish some of their powers to develop peace building, for example. And this is part of the conflict transformation that is happening. Mapping system, mitigation of the conflict, and then how, and then you go to when. So you have then security, apologies, sustainable economy, you have reparations, return of refugees, disarmament. So the idea behind it is like to understand two things: the assessment of the conflict towards the second thing, toward the reconciliation process. If you can combine those together, you reach to applied Phronesis in the reconciliation process, where then you are going there. This is the applied Phronesis for reconciliation process. This is where we wanted to go into it. So this, I don't know if I answered a little bit of your questions. Maybe you can, anyone who has other ideas that can also share with us on the process that's really happened now, and you can share with us, like maybe give a feedback of what he thinks as well. I open discussion for for all of us.
Yes, I actually have a question.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So my question is about this matrix. Are the elements present in this matrix ordered in according to anything specific, or they are just randomly presented here in this table?
The conflicts are, we choose a conflict, and then we try to understand how it's, to analyze it, do assessment to it, and then apply to it the antidote of reconciliation. So these are the tools of reconciliation, the practices that you see on the left side, and you can choose any conflict. You don't need to choose only one conflict, because then you have to try and study how this conflict can be working towards. You can write a whole dissertation about, let's say, the Algerian-French apology. Why is it not happening? Why does France not want to apologize? Who is responsible for the apologies? Where, when, what? All of these questions can develop in you. You can write a whole book about it. Because this is a lens. And this lens, you can use these 5 lenses. And the idea behind it is to understand these elements, how to work towards the reconciliation process. And the philosophy behind it is to apply the epistemology technique towards it and get a new thing and really understand what's really happening. And then you can analyze the conflict. And then you can choose it to any conflict. These are elements for reconciliation. So now what I did is exactly, I did the epistemology, applied it to technology and to the technique part, and then I have Phronesis. So it makes you think. And at the end, as Aristotle said, it's the well-being, well done. So when he says it's well, he means the ethical conduct, that it is a very good way to do it. Did I answer your question?
Maybe just to add why those examples, they are actual examples. So actual conflicts. There's now this process between France and Algeria or in Sudan. So we did not want to choose historical one, but and all some who might be interesting for you, but not somewhere maybe discussions are too complicated. Let us say what to think about Afghanistan today is still a bit complicated, or about Myanmar. This was a bit the approach, I assume, at least, because it was not me who chose them, but we talked before a bit about this conflict to study. So they're all actual processes, also Colombia and so on. And yeah, but you can use this mapping, which is very useful for every conflict and any conflict, even in the past or in the future.
Thank you so much.
I think Dr. Ruwan understood better my question. I was talking actually about the elements of the matrix. I wanted to know whether there was any criterion, or did you follow any criterion in ordering these elements, or do these elements of reconciliation follow any logic? I mean, the order you have here in the table, or is there a chronological order in which these things should happen first, or this was just my question?
That's
yeah, and Dr. Ruwan just answered me that they were randomly listed.
But there's an idea behind it, by the way. So let me tell you that the idea behind it is when you have an element of reconciliation, you have to develop it. So it develops what we do call conflict transformation. And conflict transformation you cannot pick an order. So as you said, France does not want to do apologies, but that does mean that France does not want to do a reconciliation. As you see, there's also a time limit. So you cannot just say, I want to start with apology, but you can start with any elements, and then it might get to apologies. So there's no part of element. The ideas behind it is to develop conflict transformation. So we have conflict, we want to develop conflict transformation. You don't need to have it all as what you want, like 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't do one, you get to nowhere. Then no, that's not conflict transformation. You have to try different elements of reconciliation process. And those one elements, not all of them will work. Some of them will work, some of them will not. The only thing that is, like, you have let's say a disease, for example, and you have the virus and you have the antidote. Your antidote does not kill the disease at the beginning. It starts little by little. So if apologies doesn't work, maybe reparation works, economical stability works, maybe. But the idea of reconciliation is to build a better common future for the people, the two nations that are in conflict. But you cannot say, like, I only want apologies, and then I don't want to do reconciliation for France, for example, because apology is not there. But maybe France will give you other elements of reconciliation. Can you work with those elements? For example, Let's say now we'll go, if I use any other legal and provisions, economic stability. This will be part of reconciliation. You can write a whole thing and do big research how economic stability France can help this development. And then that you cannot get like the process of reconciliation is an ongoing process. Therefore, you cannot choose one element and order it in different elements. So we say, here's are the element, use the element that can develop for your reconciliation and put you on the track. As I can say, and that what can develop many pieces. So you'll not have one piece that you want, because you might want to start from there, from apologies, and France wants to start from economy. So what can you do? Cancel the economy because there's no apology, or cancel the apology because there's no economy. So this is not the idea. Then you don't get conflict transformation. You know, you start with the economy, or start with apology, or start with forgiveness, and see where it gets. It might, if I forgive, the economy might be better. So this is other aspect of the. I hope this answers the questions. If you're looking for,
thank you very much, Dr.
So I will, and now I'm really finishing. Actually, you have any question, Awan?
You know, I just wanted to say that in the matrix, that kind of listing does not have any order, so you don't have to have the rule of law or the political or rule of law aspect, for example, or apology one before the other. It's just a way of listing them. But those are all elements of reconciliation. And also I saw that there's a question from Abdel Ghani. What about the religious element? So Dr. Iyad wanted to list everything in that matrix, and I said, no, we don't have enough time to cover all of them. So yes, you can also analyze the religious element in, and the role of it in any conflict and in the reconciliation process, Abdel Ghani. So we have 4 minutes left for the end of the session. So we'd like to make a small activity for a reflection on how do you feel right now after this session. Plenty of information. We loaded you with an activity. So I'm going to share my screen, and there is a tree where you can color where do you feel right now. So in order to be able to color, then you only need to click on annotate. And when you click on annotate, you have the coloring option. Then you can color which person over that tree you feel you're right now.
How can I color again, Rowan?
There is an option called annotate with the color. So the toolbar for the share screen, where you can chat, participate, and like mute or stop the video. Then there's an option with a pen.
I think you need to activate.
I don't see the option as well, by the way.
Yes, it's in the options of screen sharing. You need to tick the allow participants to annotate, to make annotations.
Hello?
Okay, I didn't understand where to allow participants.
It's in the screen sharing options. There is a drop list that you can view options, I think.
Yeah, advanced sharing options.
No, not on the settings. It's on the bar with the options at the top of your screen. There is a drop-down list you can activate.
Yes, the more. Yeah.
On the left, yes, more. Yes, here you can choose allow participants to make annotations.
I don't have that option actually. Oh, allow annotations.
Yes, that's it.
So it's allowed now. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome.
By the way, I still don't see it in my computer. I don't know.
You should now you should click view options.
More.
Once you click view options, you have annotate.
I have participants, polls, chat, and share screen. I don't have
on the top of your screen.
On top of my screen.
Yes, view options.
Let me close the cement one. I'll see where view options. I still don't see it. Security. Participant. I don't see it, by the way. Where is it? Maybe I don't get it. It's right here.
Do you see the green bar on the top of your screen? You are viewing Raman Tahboub's screen.
Okay, got it. Okay, and then what I have, stop participant side by side, annotate. Okay, got you. Then I can do and draw. Excellent.
So what was the question again? Sorry, what should we do?
So you're just coloring, where do you feel right now? Which person over this tree you feel after this session?
Excuse me, what should we do? I missed you so much.
So you're just coloring, where do you feel you're right now? Like any person over this tree, how do you feel?
Sorry, I can't find it.
Okay, so in closing, in 3 minutes, does anybody want to reflect on why he or she colored a specific person on the tree?
Very interesting. I said I am the guy who's saying hi to everyone, by the way. That's how I say to everyone. Someone is still, Walid is hanging, he's falling, but he's hanging, Walid. I'm trying to help you, but it's not gonna happen. I'm for a little bit far. I don't know, the guy who put red here, I don't understand. You are on someone's shoulder, seems. And this one will let the guy fall. Oh, okay. And I think someone's still here and someone's only watching, which is really good. And here is hanging, it's fine. This is me, by the way. And there's a brown here one. So this is feeling good, but who is this guy? I don't know. There's two guys here. It's fine. It's two guys, two people, two girls, or I don't know. So yeah, I think it was interesting, by the way. Yeah, thank you, Rowan. That's very interesting. So before we go, I can just share with you one last about the case studies to just go away with the case studies. We're not going to talk about them. We're just to show you a little bit of what they are. Maybe everyone can share with us the Percy for a moment before we close the session, because I think we are over. but I want to just something to give you to think about after this, the end of the session. So if you go out from here, from the, I don't think I have a, yeah, and I'll get out of the applied phronesis. We're out of applied phronesis. So go to just to the case studies, and I just show you some case studies in a second. So here's are some of the case studies. So you can go around with it just to show German-France reconciliation, one of the hardest until today. And then you can see about this North-South Korea together after long killings again. This is Colombia. Until today, the reconciliation is failed, by the way, and they're still working on it. And if you go here, this is in Ghana. They developed a tribal reconciliation because the tribes keep killing each other. And then here you can say about South Africa. Yeah, Desmond Tutu, and still reconciliation is working. You know, here is with Mandela and the apartheid regime, what happened. And this is, you know, another book about the South African reconciliation, Resentment, with Mandela. You see Desmond Tutu and Mandela as well. This is the Truth and Commission. People who were saying about what happened to them. Yeah, and there's also a Gakaka process, part of the reconciliation process post-genocide and justice in Rwanda. This is the last sermon. I talked to you about the work that I was doing in my PhD. I think this is also just more about, you can watch the last sermon if you want or anything. So I think now we actually, yeah, and these are just repetition of this of the Truth and Commission and the land Desmond Tutu. So this is just part of the little bit of what we tried to show you about the case studies that we showed you in the session. So if anybody has any question, would like to have a question before we leave, and I think because we are over our time limit, actually correct for one, we are over. We went over, I guess. I have 2 times, so I think we are over. So does anyone have any questions before we leave? So if nobody have any question, maybe Abdul Ghani has to say something, I guess. Abdul Ghani, you can say something.
I think Abdul Ghani is clapping for us. That's a way of saying goodbye to everybody. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your engagement. And we see you all next Friday.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you for that very interesting session.
See you next.
Take care, everyone. It was nice to see you.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. All the best.
Bye, Dr. Omar. Have a good one. Are you still online or خلص روحت ضل انا وياك لحالنا؟